So I'm in 1 Samuel 25. I'm starting in verse 2, it looks like. Okay. So David had moved down to the wilderness of Moan. There was a wealthy man from Moan who owned property near the town of Carmel. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and it was sheep shearing time. This man's name was Nebal, and his wife, Abigail, was a sensible and beautiful woman. But Nebal, a descendant of Caleb, was crude and mean in his dealings. You know, I had a time in my life when I was married to a man who was crude and mean. And it was very difficult navigating anything being underneath that type of authority, right? It caused a lot of problems in my life and brought a lot of different challenges. Okay. So I know what that feels like. When David heard that Nebal was shearing sheep, he sent 10 of his young men to Carmel with the message for Nebal. Peace and prosperity to you, your family, and everything you own. I'm told that it is sheep shearing time. While your shepherds stayed among us near Carmel, we never harmed them, and nothing was ever stolen from them. Ask your own men, and they will tell you this is true. So would you be kind to us since we have come at a time of celebration? Please share any provisions you might have on hand with us and with your friend David. David's young men gave this message to Nebal in David's name, and they waited for a reply. Who is this fellow, David? Nebal answered to the young men. Who does this son of Jesse think he is? There are lots of servants these days who run away from their masters. Should I take my bread and my water and my meat that I've slaughtered for my shears and give it to a band of outlaws who come from who knows where? So David's young men returned and told him what Nebal had said. Get your swords, was David's reply as he strapped on his own. Then 400 men started off with David, and 200 remained behind to guard their equipment. Now, I mean, I can just see that. You can almost kind of see the actions of this man, the big chip on his shoulder, that no matter what's been done to him, there's not an ounce of graciousness or appreciation within his being. Being married to a man who was rude and crude like this, what I experienced was he had a huge chip on his shoulder. And I just compare this in my mind to this particular person in the scriptures. Bad things had happened in his life, and he just felt like he had it worse than anybody else, and that he didn't owe anybody anything, but everybody owed him something for the tragedies that had been in his life, not realizing that it's the human condition. We all suffer, right? And it's what we choose to do with that and how we respond to that. We can either be pitiful or powerful, but you really can't be both. Right? So living with that chip on your shoulder just is not going to get you anywhere. All right, picking back up in verse 14. Meanwhile, one of Nabal's servants went to Abigail and told her, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he screamed insults at them. These men have been very good to us, and we never suffered any harm from them. Nothing was stolen from us the whole time they were with us. In fact, day and night, they were like a wall of protection to us and the sheep. You need to know this and figure out what to do, for there's going to be trouble for our master and his whole family. He's so ill-tempered that no one can even talk to him. Like, these are all the people that worked for him, right? They knew, there's no reasoning with this man. He's impossible to deal with. He won't listen, right? So in verse 18, Abigail wasted no time. She quickly gathered 200 loaves of bread, 2 wineskins full of wine, 5 sheep that had been slaughtered, nearly a bushel of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 fig cakes. She packed them on donkeys and said to her servants, Go on ahead, and I will follow you shortly. But she didn't tell her husband Nebal what she was doing. As she was riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, she saw David and his men coming toward her. David had just been saying, A lot of good it did to help this fellow. We protected his flocks in the wilderness, and nothing he owned was lost or stolen. But he has repaid me evil for good. May God strike me and kill me if even one man of his household is still alive tomorrow morning. See, David was in a weak point, right? He was exhausted. He had been, trying, oh, my cousin's here. Hi, Debbie. I love my cousin Debbie. I wouldn't even know Yahweh at all had it not been for my cousin Debbie, who lived a life of knowing that Yahusha was real and ministered to me in my lowest state. So welcome, welcome. I love you so much. Um, so anyway, he was in a really low hurting state because he was exhausted. And we can do that. It doesn't matter how much in ministry you are, or anything else, what great testimony. If you get to that point to where the enemy, you've just been fighting and fighting and fighting, you can become absolutely worn out and you can make some really bad decisions. So what Abigail does next is just incredible. All right. So verse 23, when Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed low before him. She fell at his feet and said, I accept all blame in this matter, my lord. Right? I mean, she just took that humble position. Was it her fault that her husband was acting like an idiot, that he was mean and churlish? And, who knows if her family hadn't arranged that marriage, that she didn't even choose to be in that situation, because that's kind of what, happened at that point in time, right? But so she takes this humble position. She says, please listen to what I have to say. I know Nebal is a wicked and ill-tempered man. Please don't pay any attention to him. He is a fool, just as his name suggests. Now, my lord, as surely as Yahweh lives and you yourself live, since Yahweh has kept you from murdering and taking vengeance into your own hands, let all your enemies and those who try to harm you be as cursed as Nebal is. And here is a present that I, your servant, have brought to you and your young men. Please forgive me if I've offended you in any way. Yahweh will surely reward you with a lasting dynasty, for you are fighting Yahweh's battles, and you have not done wrong throughout your entire life. Your life is safe in the care of Yahweh, your Elohim, secure in his treasure pouch. But the lives of your enemies will disappear like stones shot from a sling. When Yahweh has done all he promised and has made you leader of Yasharel, don't bear the staggering burden of needless bloodshed and vengeance. And when Yahweh has done these great things for you, please remember me, your servant. David replied to Abigail, praise Yahweh, the Elohim of Yasharel, who has sent you to meet me today. Thank Elohim for your good sense. Bless you for keeping me from murder and from carrying out vengeance with my own hands. For I swear by Yahweh, the Elohim of Yasharel, who has kept me from hurting you, that if you had not hurried out to meet me, not one of Nabal's men would still be alive tomorrow morning. Then David accepted her present and told her, return home in peace. I've heard what you said. We will not kill your husband. When Abigail arrived home, she found that Nebal was throwing a big party and was celebrating like a king. He was very drunk, so she didn't tell him anything about her meeting with David until dawn the next day. In the morning, when Nebal was sober, his wife told him what had happened. As a result, he had a stroke, and he lay paralyzed on his bed like a stone. About 10 days later, Yahweh struck him and he died. When David heard that Nebal was dead, he said, praise Yahweh, who has avenged the insult I received from Nebal and has kept me from doing it myself. Nebal has received the punishment for his sin. Then David sent messengers to Abigail to ask her to become his wife. When the messengers arrived at Carmel, they told Abigail, David has sent us to take you back to marry him. She bowed low to the ground and responded, I, your servant, would be happy to marry David. Now, isn't that a beautiful story? Yahweh does see our trouble. And when I was married to somebody who was opening doors in a demonic realm, right? And I didn't know what was happening, because when the husband's not doing things that are right, the doors are opened in those demonic realms. And I was sharing with someone on our Telegram group that I would share what I did to fight during that time in my life, because it was hard. And there were literally demonic entities showing up at night, and I felt like things were absolutely sitting on my chest, and I couldn't breathe sometimes at night. It felt like demons were almost trying to choke the life out of me, and I was doing the best that I knew how to serve Yahweh in the circumstances that I was in. And it was a hard time in my life. I had a daughter to protect, and she was very depressed and having all kinds of problems. I was homeschooling. I was, it was just so incredibly hard. And my marriage was just, our hearts were as far apart from each other as they could be, but yet I knew I was to stay right there for that moment. And it was incredibly difficult. So I promised that I would sing a song that I learned to sing at that time. And I promised, even if my voice was croaky and horrible, that I would sing this song, because I typed the words of it on our Telegram, but it's hard to know what the tune is unless you've actually heard it sung. So I don't think that I'm any great singer. I've never thought that. I would prefer not to sing publicly, but I don't know how to give you guys this tool without doing it. And I told my husband, Robert, who is a wonderful, wonderful blessing in my life today, I told him, I said, of course, I woke up, my throat feels like it's on fire and feels scratchy and horrible, and I have no idea what this is going to sound like. I said, but I promise, so I got to do it, right? So here's the song that I learned to sing during that time. And I tell you what, the only name I knew to sing was Jesus at that point, but I'm going to sing it to you with Yahusha in the name now. All right? Because his name has power. Here's the song. So when this thing would begin to attack me at night, I would croak this out the best that I could. And I'm telling you, the demonic spirits would leave. And that would be it. The fight was over that night. Didn't mean I didn't have to do it over and over. But for that night, the battle was won when I would sing this song. All right. Yahusha, Yahusha, Yahusha. There's just something about your name, Master, Savior, Yahusha, like a fragrance after the rain. Yahusha, 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 let all heaven and earth proclaim. Kings and kingdoms shall all pass away, but your name shall forever remain.